Is that mine or is that mine?
I was saying, I want to be my favorite Republican guy. These are words from the author. Like I said, I wrote this 2 years ago. The 90s were, at minimum, confusing. The market crash of October 1987 shook the nation and its confidence. Wave models symbolized a heroin-addicted, anorexic standard of unattainable beauty. Presidents blamed their predecessors for unstable economic and political conditions. Depressing, angry music threw itself at us like a pile of nails in the face. The music and the films following, Reality Bites, Single, Sleepless in Seattle, reinforced the chaos of an unfamiliar world, one where technology just began to infiltrate people's personal lives. Two cities specifically showcased attention, Seattle and Chicago. The former gave us Nirvana and Pearl Jam. The latter, Purge Overkill, Smashing Pumpkins, Coy Dog Pondering, Wilco, Ministry, Veruca Salt, Material Issue, My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, Liz Phair, and Pearl Jam's very own Eddie Vedder. Chicago, under Mayor Daley's leadership, exploded. Companies demanded headquarters in the thriving downtown, reversing and doubling morning and evening traffic commutes. Perry Farrell hosted the very first Lollapalooza in the vast and beautiful Grand Park. Zen coach Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, and the Bulls brought home 6 unprecedented NBA championships. The year between trophies, football players from the entire planet converged on Lake Michigan for the World Cup. A decade into her talk show arena, Oprah led the way with a book club that catapulted relatively unknown authors into literary superstars. She also found her way into the movie industry, eventually branded as the most powerful woman in Hollywood. Evanston's John Cusack took the London-based play and book High Fidelity and made a film, shooting it in the emerging Wicker Park neighborhood. Young and ambitious brokers swarmed to the Chicago Stock Exchange, hedging theirs and our future, and speculating the local real estate prices to unmatched levels. To live in Chicago in the 1990s, to really live there and to be someone of value, you had to be winning at everything. The competitive landscape demanded it. You were at the time expected to have a 6-figure job that supported a $350,000 piece of property fully furnished by homegrown Crate and Barrel. You made yourself known by blowing $45 a meal at every new Old Town restaurant and afterwards tipping the attendant for your $10 pop valet parking. Additionally, given all the temptations of the summer festival's events, if there was ever a weekend where you stayed home because you couldn't afford to go out, radio stations would remind you of everything you missed out on by staying in. No weekend was this more prevalent than during the Air and Water Show, where you would either see or hear the thunderous acrobatics in the sky. You also owned a European car, and if you couldn't afford one, you leased a Lexus. And if you were a man, you wore deep can spice sweaters and began to spend money on designer hair and beauty products. Forget the barbershop. You invested in time in a Michigan Avenue salon and also did your nails as it massaged your feet. If you were a woman, you were probably a Trixie, which meant that your parents paid for your student loans, your credit card bills, and your Volkswagen Jetta or Cabriolet. You and your Gucci bag sporting roommates or golf-playing boyfriend moved into your Wrigleyville or Lincoln Park walk-up, where you spent the weekends between walking to Cubs games, cabbing to Water Tower Place, or clubbing at Excalibur off Dearborn Avenue. You'd meet up your family at one of the many Richard Mullman's Let Us Entertain You eateries. You spent and you showed off everything you spent. And when you married, once you registered at Marshall Fields, you bought a 100-year-old piece of lakefront property in Chicago's immediate most desirable neighborhood, the North Shore. See most of John Hughes' movies for reference. Now, if, say, you were also part of the Soviet Jewish community, Generation Zero, an added level expectation engulfed you. The pressure to live up to a certain new money immigrant lifestyle that included mandatory excursions to one of the numbered Russian restaurants in the area. By this point, most had left their Devon Avenue roots to keep up with the population moving northwest. The two most populated were White Nights near O'Hare and Metropole, which replaced the 80s punk teen club McGreevy's off Gulf Road. Birthdays, bar bat mitzvahs, wedding anniversaries could not be celebrated anywhere else. The entire point was to see and to be seen, and when you were seen, you were expected to wear your best evening wear, your sparkliest jewelry, your highest heels. Men and women would smoke outside the venue doors, using opportunity not just to talk about the people inside the club, oh no, but also to make remarks as to who got out of what car, with whom, what were they wearing. Like Joan Rivers on the red carpet, the venomous commentary signaled either jealousy or judgment. Either way, you were an object. Once inside the new Baroque decor, you were expected to drop a check, or cash preferably, for whatever reason drew you to the club to begin with. To be sure, plenty of food and vodka perked from each table. The food kept coming, the alcohol pouring, the band playing. Every every night in a Russian restaurant was some sort of apocalyptic send-off. If you were going out in style and with a big smile on your face. When not attending a weekly celebration of yet one more acknowledgement of someone's natural state of progress, you were residing in Buffalo Grove, a former flat and treeless farmland. For whatever reason, the neighborhood attracted money, especially new immigrant money, quicker than a casino to a gambler. You were expected to get married, make babies, and perpetuate the lifestyle of the elders, never straying away from the norm. These immigrants, my people, had suffered through fascism, communism, and anti-Semitism. They came to America for a better life. But many never once considered that to live in America, you had to be an American. And to be an American meant giving children the options and life choices that broke from the past. But when the victim mentality, one where you're always paranoid that a soldier will knock on your door and demand your money, your life, or your life, this idea of letting go, your culture, your language, your customs, your kids, especially when you risked it all to come here to the land of opportunity, well, that's just all simply absurd. No, instead you married your kid off to the kid of your childhood friend, like a prearranged marriage, where tradition ensured you celebrated your grandson's bris by serving pork chops. Thank you for getting that. Education of the academic kind was important. Jews value education like an unquestioned law. However, education of being an American was frowned upon. And if, God forbid, your child dated a non-Jew, a shiksa, or a boy, the wrath of God would emerge like a Midwest pogrom. But when the unwelcome suitor would question his or her love interest as to what exactly makes their parents so Jewish, besides high holiday synagogue attendance, the argument would be thwarted into some sort of non-related and absurd guilt trip filled with history of hate towards the Jewish people. These one-sided discussions would then be closed with so many parents under Charlton Heston proclaiming, "We didn't come to this country so you could be with the enemy. It's your choice, them or us." This fear of abandonment, fear of the unknown, and fear of control loss led mostly to one of two outcomes. Either the children married within the culture and continued the predestined destiny, or they eventually broke from the antiquated map and fled quicker than Moses did from Egypt. I lived both of those lives. At age 22, I married within my shtetl's designed and approved definition of manifest destiny, and shortly afterwards realized this life is not for me. By age 24, I was legally separated. By 25, I was divorced. How could I have possibly been someone's wife when I hadn't yet really discovered who I was, and who was there to guide me? The pressure cooker of wealth-demanding Chicago and baby-demanding Russian Jews, all at a time I was just starting to discover my voice, imploded within me. I did date that Irishman who demanded that I make a choice between the immigrant life and the American life. Our relationship didn't survive, but his influence drove a catapulting shift within me. Gradually, I crawled out of debt by working my ass off. I moved into my very first own place in Andersonville 773 and far, far away from the 847. I lost the pain weight I had put on from all that emotional food by working out, watching what I eat, and rediscovering the artist from within. I got rid of my car, I pared down my possessions, I moved to yet another apartment of studio in Lakeview. All this combined was an interim step, like the security checkpoints of an international flight to make sure that all your papers are in order. I addressed multiple layers and levels of misguided expectations and false realities because I had to save myself. I loved my family and the people who remain my true friends. I loved excerpts and radio. I loved Point Out Pondering. I loved the rooftop pool in my building, which overlooked Wrigley Field on one side and the beautiful Lake Michigan on the other. I still love those things and all those people, clearly. And if I could take them all and put them in my pocket, I would. But I would not tolerate the rest of it. The city of big shoulders felt like one giant bully. My soul demanded sincerity and not just survival. In August 2001, 2 weeks before September 11th, with an American boyfriend at my side, I left Chicago and used grad school as a passport out of all of it. In the decade since, I earned my MBA, moved to Cleveland, held an executive management position with a Fortune 500 firm, traveled the world, produced a music video, conducted multiple photography exhibits, bought a house, lost a job, went through numerous relationships, reconnected with the Irishman who shortly vanished without a trace, survived brutal surgery, published some books, started a company, began teaching film, and now help other people find their creative and professional voice. When the market crashed in late 2008, it took with it my job and eventually my 401k, my house, and all my money. It had shattered my confidence and the confidence of this amazing country called America. My highly educated and very accomplished friends, all of us Gen Xers, and all of us kickboxed and double punched twice in our careers, are all rediscovering who we are, who we wanted to be, and if that gap has gotten shorter or wider over the past 20 years. Most of us have no desire to ever be corporate drones ever again, and we're learning to enjoy and value more by living with less. The 90s were a complex time. Today is a complex live in Chicago, but it's still in me. It always will be. In 2011, after 22 years, Richard Daley, just a few years later, sold the city street parking to a private firm for a mere $1.1 billion. Also gave up his mayoral seat to Rahm Emanuel. Chicago Bulls made it to the NBA playoffs, but lost to Miami Heat in Game 5. And many of the city's local residents, immigrant and otherwise, are still struggling to rebound from the catastrophic real estate fallout that's driving thousands into bankruptcy and foreclosure. Not only in their expensive homes, but also the ones in which, just a decade earlier, they invested for flipping purposes. And within the past year or two, at least half a dozen Soviet Jewish immigrants, many within my generation, have been arrested for contributing their part to the mortgage crisis investment pyramid schemes, some stealing retirement funds from their own grandparents, friends, and family. Finally, so many of the young people with whom I once associated during the 90s navigated their lives into adultery, infidelity, divorce, multiple marriages, and personal turmoil. The Chicago of the 1990s, and now it seems, wasn't sustainable for many, and I say this sans any kind of judgment. I'm in no position to judge anyone, for back then and even since, I've made my share of mistakes, personal, professional, and fiscal. To be sure, many of Chicago's rich and responsible are still doing okay. I even know one couple that no longer has a mortgage and in spacious Yokohama's North Shore home. I know several friends that are still married, still in love, and raising good, honest, happy, stable children. But these success stories, these are the exceptions and certainly not the norms. Not for my people. Presidents, the economy, geography, ethnic groups, personal relationships, technology, family, and friends are all fixed variables and variable fixes, driving as much or as little influence into our lives as we allow. The material in this book was written and captured under the heaviest of influence and perhaps has its time now. Perhaps it's a coda to a questionable symphony. I don't know. I'm not wise enough